morning and welcome to another edition of Angles and Attitudes. This morning, we are thrilled and honored to have on NBA announcer, legendary NBA announcer for the Toronto Raptors, and of course, our Chicago Bulls. I've got the other team logo on here today that's in that building, Chuck, and we're going to maybe just touch on both of them of what kind of a year it's going to be for both of them. But Chuck Swirsky, thanks for coming in this morning.
John, my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, Chuck. Going back to the days because I'm a Norwich born and raised here on the Northwest Side. I call it the best suburb in the world. Listening to you back on WCFL back in the late 70s.
Wow.
I was going to Loyola University, listening to those talk shows. But how does it start for you being the Norfolk native?
Well, I mean, it started with a dream because I was always the smallest kid in the classroom, John. And, I got bullied and I wasn't a very good athlete and I couldn't really run fast. And so I decided at a very, very, very early age that I loved sports and this is what I wanted to do. And one thing led to the next, and I got involved at the neighborhood radio station when we moved to the Seattle area. And then I got involved with reading the school announcements in whether it was elementary school, junior high school, went on to college, got an internship. And like a lot of young people, you have to persevere and knock on the door to get any type of foot in that door,
right,
to create a foundation for the future.
Did you have a passion for it? Like when you were telling me just now what was going on and how you wanted to, I do want to announce this. I think I can announce a baseball game. I think I can announce a basketball game. I always used to take the old reel-to-reel tape recorder and do my own Homer synopsis of a game here in town.
Absolutely. I remember there was a little reel-to-reel about that size, John, and it had a microphone. And you would plug in the microphone with a little cord like that, and you'd hold the microphone. I would go into the local high school and do games when I was 12, 13 years old. Wow. So this is a dream, and to call now NBA basketball, I'm going on my 25th season.
Incredible.
This year. It is amazing.
You know, those early years, as I started it tonight, this morning, the WCFL, the Loop and everything. I mean, did you feel, Chuck, in those early years, you could see the progression of a Chuck Swirsky?
No. You know what? I honestly, I took every day as a blessing, and I really never thought, I mean, we all have dreams and aspirations, but, it's a grind and I have to work at it. I'm not one of these proteges where all of a sudden things came naturally. I had to work at my craft. I still work at my craft every day. I take nothing for granted. And so, when I began in this business, in fact, I was telling a friend the other day, because he was saying, boy, 25 years. And I said, honestly, when I started in NBA broadcasting, and I had done 18 years of college. It's not like all of a sudden I became an NBA broadcaster.
Right.
I had done a lot of things before hitting the NBA. And so when I started with the Raptors, my hope was, wow, let me get through this first year and maybe I can make it to year 3. Because it wasn't that I lacked confidence, but I didn't know what was out there as far as the uncharted waters of calling NBA ball. And so, 1 year became 3 years, 3 years became 5, 5 became 8, 8 became 10, so on and so forth. So, I had to work at it. And again, as I mentioned, I'm still working at it because I never allow, I never allow the fact that entitlement enters my world, John.
Yes.
I hold myself to a high standard of accountability and making sure that every broadcast is important. For example, the Bulls were taping this on Tuesday morning. but they're playing a preseason game with the Bucks.
Tonight, yes, yes.
And so I'm going over notes, and I found a great tidbit on the Milwaukee Bucks that I'm going to use tonight. But again, this is about getting up at 6 a.m. in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, sometimes not going to bed until, midnight, to make sure that if something's on your brain that you need to look up, you do it now. You don't wait.
Right. Chuck, what an unbelievable point by you, because here's me, this young kid growing up watching, like say, a newsman or something. And I would always say, oh, wow, they must be just walking into the studio at 1 minute to 10 and doing the newscast. And then I find out in my later years when I took journalism classes at Loyola, these gentlemen like you and everybody else, they're starting, that game's over. They got to prepare for the next lineup if the Boston Celtics are coming in or you're going to Boston. So, thank you for bringing that up, because I think people think you just got the suit on and there's Chuck Swirsky and he's going to make some calls, DeRozan from the 3-point line. Yeah. It's not like that, correct? It's not like, no. But and I got to say, the confidence with you, I know you said you got to work at your craft every day, but I think the ultimate compliment from the Raptors to the Bulls to the radio stations in just researching you was that people really respected and liked what you had to offer. Did you feel that way over the years?
Well, you know what? I think, confidence and trust is earned. It's not given. And so, John, the hard work I put in is because I care about my craft. I care about when I go on the air, it's a representation of not only myself, but my family and the ball club that I'm broadcasting and the fan base, because I don't want to cheat anyone. When the team shows confidence that you can still get it done and you're doing it the right way. And I've had a policy in my DNA and my heart that I do the very best I can each and every day for the organization. Now, am I perfect? No. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that the integrity of the broadcast is what the foundation of a call is all about. So I'll give you an example.
Sure.
So whether the Bulls are up by 20 or down by 20, I have no control over that, John. I'm going into the United Center tonight not knowing what's going to happen in a preseason game. Okay. So now I've got my prep. I've got, everything here that before a game, talk to different, coaches, assistant coaches, media people, so on and so forth. And I'm prepared for a game. Once that ball is thrown up, I have really no control other than calling a basketball game. And so the scoreboard doesn't dictate my presentation.
Right.
Now, do I want the Bulls to win? Absolutely. I want them to go 82-0. That's not going to happen. And they're going to be off nights. These are human beings. They're not going to make every shots. They're not going to have great games. But as far as just calling a game in front of me, I control that. And that's why I always have to be on top of my game.
And another, just a great point by you, because let's say they're up by 20, your conversation, and let's say, Levine and DeRozan and everybody is they're all getting hot. But then if they're down by 20, Chuck Swirsky and Bill Weddington now have to make this game entertaining, radio or TV, for this audience, correct? I mean, you have to bring it to, okay, and we're getting clocked here.
Yeah. Well, for example, the other night, the Bulls Denver game was essentially over. There was a point in the fourth quarter where, the Bulls were playing and we were telling stories about, certain elements of Bulls players. Denver had guys that they were going to cut the next day. And so Bill and I, we would fill with play-by-play, but we also told stories. It's a preseason game. Now, are there times during a regular season game and a blowout that we kind of shift gears a little bit? Absolutely. Because as you mentioned, we have an audience. And whether that audience is of 1, 1,000, or 100,000, we owe it to them to keep them informed and entertained.
Right, exactly. I know your time today is valuable and everything else, and I know you have a game to do tonight. Those Raptor years, and I know you left Chicago to go to Michigan, and then you did the Toronto Raptors, which are some phenomenal years, starting out in '98 as the radio,
Yep.
and then you went to the television side. Chuck, the question I want to ask you here tonight is, did you always have a feeling that you wanted to come back to Chicago, or was it just something that just played out in what my mom and dad would
Well,
say, the
you know
destiny?
what, John, it probably just played out. I have a lot of respect for the Raptors organization. I thought I was going to be there for my life, and I became, a citizen. I'm a dual citizen. I love Canada, love Toronto. The people were like off the charts great. But when the opportunity came, I have so much respect for the Raptor ownership with Larry Tannenbaum as I do for Jerry Reinsdorf. And, the Reinsdorf name with Jerry and Michael, they're really, 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 really outstanding people. And so because the familiarity with Chicago and because I had a history here, I thought it was the right time. And it's not a criticism of anything to do with Toronto or Canada or the culture. I love the culture, and I can't say one negative thing about my 10 years there.
Sure.
But the opportunity to come back with the history of the Bulls and the tradition in the city of Chicago and how crazy the city is for sports, I had to go. I wanted to go.
Sure.
And so here I am 15 years later.
50 years later,
And
they go by so quick.
it goes by quickly, and I hope there are a few more years,
Oh, there will be, Chuck. We're not going to let you go.
No,
Chuck,
I hope not. But
the two markets, let's
yes,
say Canada, Toronto, and because I talked to Wayne Larrabee, I interviewed Wayne Larrabee, and he says, he came from Kansas City back in the day, the Chicago Bears. Matter of fact, he comes back the year before they win the Super Bowl. And he said, John, the two markets were totally different markets, because here you got this Chicago-based people that are critiquing. There's talk shows. They're on with Swirsky at night. They're on with this guy and the other night. Are the two markets, Toronto, Canada, and Chicago, Illinois, two different? Because now you're really the good judge and jury of this because of the years you spent with both organizations.
no, you know what? I'll say this. I think fans are fans, John. Like in Toronto, the Raptor Nation is as strong as any fan base in the NBA. They are passionate. They love basketball. That sport has grown so much since 1995 when they came in as an expansion ball club. Wow. It's amazing. It's great. Canada, hockey is their number one sport. They have embraced that. The Maple Leafs have not been good as far as postseason play. Sometimes they don't even make the playoffs, and when they do, it's a disappointment.
Yes.
But fans love hockey. But, even then, it's starting to change a little bit with the demographics with hockey now in Canada. And I'm not saying the basketball will ever replace hockey or baseball is going to replace hockey, because they probably won't.
Right.
But here in Chicago, whether it's Bears, Blackhawks, Bulls, Cubs, Sox, Big Ten football, Notre Dame, it's fantastic. So my take is that I don't compare markets, because every market is unique in its own stand.
Right. Exactly. I just want to touch on the team that you, of course, announced for. Do you foresee? I thought last year at the beginning of the year, they were going to do something in a sense, but I felt just like that second half, I felt like they lost the confidence. Do you see seeing now what they're going after, the lineup chances and what Billy's trying to do, Billy Donovan? Do you see a different Bulls team from last year?
Well, you know what, John? Here, every year is different. So
Yeah.
last year is last year. This is this year.
Right.
And injuries once again become an issue with this ball club. I just love to see one season where, and I know injuries are a part of the game and no one really plays 82 games anymore, and I get that. But I just want to see the nucleus stay healthy for 1 year to see what they've got. And so I think there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on Io, because I would assume after starting 3 preseason games, and I would think that's going to be the case tonight against Milwaukee, that he is going to be the starting point guard in 8 days at Miami.
Okay.
And so with the loss of Lonzo, it changes the dynamics of a team. And people are saying, well, you got to play through that. Yes, you do. But that doesn't negate the fact that Lonzo adds so much to this ball club. And so you're right, John. Last year, first half, #1 in the East, looking great. Injuries happened to Lonzo. Then all of a sudden, an injury here, an injury there, COVID here, COVID there. And
Oh,
before you know it, it started to unravel. Not only that, but the schedule got a lot tougher.
sure.
So,
And that played an important part. Again, great point by you. When I was, growing up, I was always big Bulls fan, and it seemed like Bob Love, Chet Walker, Tommy Borwinkle, Van Leer, and Sloan were playing every game. So
every day,
you saw
every
this
day,
nucleus.
35 minutes a game.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God. And now you hear when somebody gets hurt, like I feel even though the Bears are a team that's going to be young and improving, they've been already, hit by the bugaboo of the injury, So
Yep.
I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I want to touch on something that your book is coming out October 26th. Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Chuck Swirsky, I can't wait to get it. Matter of fact, I have some people at Eckhart's Press that I know because I just purchased a book this past summer called Chili Dog MVP about the great Dick Allen. So I am really looking forward to this one because there were some people here in the book that wrote some unbelievable reviews about you. Matter of fact, our guy on the South Side, Steve Stone, Chris Bosch, Steph Curry, just some really great reviews, and there's some great stuff in there. And I can't wait to get my hands on it. What made you get into this book thing?
Well, you know what, John? #1, it's people have come to me and they said, well, we'd love to do a tell-all book, and I'm not into tell-all books. These are stories. Now they're insightful stories, some behind-the-scenes stories, but I'm not here to bash anyone. This is not a bash book. This is not, a book that is going to take shots at people.
Right.
Are there stories in this book? And by the way, thank you for promoting the book.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Very nice. And again, you mentioned Eckhart's Press, and you can go online, pre-order ECKHARTZ press.com, Eckhart'spress.com.
Of course, this is the
but shameless plug there. But so we have stories about behind the scenes, about the Sandberg game. Well, on the field, it was drama. And in the radio booth, there was drama.
Sure.
And so we take you behind the scenes of that. We talk a little about, the 85 Super Bowl, what transpired after the game with Walter Payton. And, we talked about the Bulls, and we talked about, the NBA. We talked about, life, that you got to persevere, and that, life is not a straight line, and that you can overcome obstacles, but you got to stay locked in and focused. And so we just, kind of a compilation of a lot of things that came my way, even as a college student, picking up Willie Mays at the airport.
Oh, wow. I mean, so, and Chuck, this is what people want to read about. They want to read about that kind of stuff and the behind the scenes, like you said, the Sandberg game. And we're talking about the 2 home runs off Bruce Sutter when Bob Cost says, do you believe, he did it again, and what was going on there. Yeah, this is just great. And like I said, the book comes out October 26th.
Yep.
And I've been trying to read tidbits on it every day about it. But Chuck, I got to tell you, and since I did start following you, and of course, when you were in Toronto, you had the 2 catch lines, and still, I was telling a couple buddies of mine, I says, you're not going to believe it, and they know I've had enough salami in my time being an Italian native.
Oh yeah,
Great Italian. break out the salami and
Salami and
cheese.
cheese,
And
mama.
that was just an unbelievable line. You did that when the team was up, right? At a
Yeah,
good point.
when the team was up with a few, like a minute or so, and the team is up, and I got a letter from a fan saying, "Hey, when the ball club wins, can you do that?" And so, sure enough, and then it caught on. We had posters, we had endorsements. It was like crazy.
Yeah, break out the salami and cheese. Chuck, I want to end it on a really nice note here this morning, because I know, like I says, I don't know how to thank you for coming on, but this is from a gentleman that you know very well. And he says, I've now worked with Chuck for 14 years. First and foremost, he's a good man and a great partner and a loyal friend. I have not met a person who's more knowledgeable about the game of basketball, past and present. His recall is nothing short of amazing. He has always an impressive fact sheet relevant to our broadcast. He brings, and like you just told me now in this interview, he brings his A game every night. And Chuck Swirsky, for me, that first impression of you is a throwback for me as a guy growing up in Chicago. You remind me of the legendary Lloyd Pettit. You remind me of Mr. Jim Durham and a guy named Wayne Larrabee. That voice, I could be in my car radio, and that voice, I'll always tell people, don't touch the dial. I don't care if they're down by 14. We're listening to Chuck Swirsky, and
Thank
I
you.
really thank you today.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you, John, so much.
Yeah, this is great. And like I says, we'll keep promoting this book, and hope to see you down the road, and go Bulls. And by the way, because you did this interview with me, here's how I'm going to end it. Onions, baby. Onions.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Chuck.
Be well.